All right, so I'm going to jump in and get started. Hope everyone is doing fairly well today. I'm going to be building the next section of the text editor and get ready to jump into some code. All right, so we have the page.tsx and we have the food diary bar. Let me add a file name daily. No, diary view.tsx. Export default function. And we'll call this daily diary view. And this diary view. Save. And we'll need to bring this into the page.tsx. Perfect. All right. And let's focus on this. So this component is going to be the star of the show. So first I need a macro details. Then we need macros, key value, and we'll need the meal name, the food row, the meal section, and then the actual props of meals. So the first one for macro details, type macro key is equal to calories, carbs, to be fat, protein, sodium, and I think sugar. And then this one should be an array of macro keys that we can loop over. So that one is going to be we can do a const macros with a key, macro key, a label, which will be a string unit. This should be a string as well. And all of this will be stored in an array. First key will be calories, and this will have a label of calories. We need a unit of cal, and then each one will need its own. So we have calories, then we need carbs. This can have a key or label of carbs, and the unit for it will be measured in grams. The next one is fat. A label of fat in a unit of gram. This one will be protein. I have a label of protein, and the unit will be gram. This one will be sodium. A label of sodium. I think these are measured in milligrams, if I'm not mistaken. Sugar. Uh-oh. I think this is measured in grams. So we have the macro key, which represents the keys that we'll keep track of when we're measuring our calories. Think of it as the options that you'll have that you can store for your entries. And then we have the key value, which is what we'll use to show in our table, if you will. We'll have a label of calories, which the key will be calories, referring back to this, and then how it will be measured. And then next, we'll need the meal names. And the meal names that we're having is breakfast, lunch, dinner, and a snack. So we'll go type. It'll be meal. Man, I can't type today. Man, having a hard time typing today. Meal name is equal to breakfast. Let me just make these capital. Lunch, dinner, snack. so let me build out the food row. We'll do typescript of raw row. Have a ID of string, a name of string, and the macros is what it will take in each row. And we'll just grab the record of the macro key, and that should be a number. And then we need to care for the actual meal section itself. Meal section. That will be, it'll have a name, and we'll use the meal name for it. And foods will be food row. Then we need to type props next. Okay, we'll do meals because we may not have any meals, so we'll need to conditionally render that. And in the meal section, that will be an array of meals. And we'll need to pass in these items inside of this component as props. So the first thing will be the date, as we'll need to pass in the day, and we'll be able to pull the items that were entered for that specific date. And then this will be equal to a empty meal array. Let's make this equal to demo empty meals. And this will be props. And then we need to create this helper function that allows us to pass in meals, and it'll need to be a empty array, as we know we can have empty meals for a specific day. So we'll create a function named demo empty meals, and we're just going to return an array of, well, we're going to return some objects, breakfast and foods. And we need to create or pass in where it will be, and of course this will be in the meal section. It should be parentheses. Just going to be name This one will be lunch. This name will be dinner. Oh, well, we also had a snack. Perfect. And then we need to pass something. We're getting this error message. We need to pass something into this. We need to pass in the date and meals. So it should take two props. So we actually can pass the exact same thing in. We'll just do date, and this will be selected ISLO. And let's make sure nothing broke. Perfect. Nothing broke. Let's go back. Close that out for now. And then now we can work on updating this daily view component. So really all we need to do is loop over the items, loop over the macros. And for each of those, we just want to display a row that will also identify what items we have within the database that match that specific date. So let's have the return statement. And instead of this div, I'm going to change it to a section. And we'll just give this a class name, some space on the Y. And I'm going to do meals.map. Do a key of meal dot we'll make it a name. And then I'm going to make this a component instead of just rendering all of this code here at once. But to get something on screen, let's add a h2, and this can be meal.name. Let's check it out. Perfect. You see the meal names here on screen: breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And this is coming from the array that we created. Here. Mm, So now that it works, let's create a function. Name meal block. This is going to return a div. And we'll make this rounded, extra large, border neutral, 200. and set the background to white. And we'll add another div, and this one we'll give it a class name of flex. This will be the outer box. Items stretch, gap of 0, border bottom, border neutral 200. I did one more div. Give this a class name with a width of 260 pixels. We'll shrink 0, border right, border neutral 200, hiding on the X, full on the Y of 3. Make this meal.name. All right, so we'll need to pass some props into this. This can be date ISO and a meal. This will be date ISO as a string, and the meal should be the meal array that we created. And perfect. So now, instead of rendering a div, let's replace that div with the component of meal block that takes a key of meal.name, also the date ISO. It's going to be date ISO. And then the last thing we know is a meal. I'm going to take a meal. All right, so let's check this out now. Perfect. So it basically rendered a meal block for each of the meal names that we have: breakfast, lunch, dinner, and a snack. I just added some basic styling to this so that it ultimately will look like this. But for right now, this is the starting point, and we'll just gradually build it out as we go. So we've already created the meal name. The next portion that I want to create is the macro header at the top, this part, so that as you see the meal name, this is the top portion of it, and then we'll add the bottom portion of it eventually, where we will store the foods and have a cell for each of the calories. And then also where we add food at across it, we're going to set functions to give us a total for the calories that are added. So let's work on that now. And hope everyone is doing okay out there. If you got any questions or anything, look, feel free to ask away. I'm an open book, but I appreciate you stopping by. A like and a comment is always appreciated. But thanks again. So I'm actually done with this for now. We need to focus back on building out this meal block component. So I have the name, and underneath that one, we'll just go um uh, we'll just go right macro, hold on, right macro header. This is a div, the class name of flex1, and overflow. The X will set it to auto. And we'll have another div. This will be the outer but inside div. The second most outer div is probably the better way to say it. This is where we'll give the shape of grid. We'll set the max width to 640 pixels. And we'll give the grid columns 6. Okay. And let's just see what this looks like. Let's go with macro header. It should just be one, but let's just make sure. Yep. And it's in a grid, so we'll have that grid layout for the additional columns, but this is the initial grid, so this is exactly what we were intending for. And then now what we want to do is for each of the macro headers, we want to loop over and display something. And what we're going to use are the macros array that we created, the array of objects where we have the key, the label, and the unit. We're going to loop over those and display each within that cell. So the way we'll do it is we'll start with some JavaScript, and to get access to it, we'll go macros.map. And within it, we'll just have a div. We'll give it a key of m.key. And it will have another div before we style it that will enclose the label. So to display it, we'll just go m.label. Let's click save. And what we should see is each of the labels within the macros array being displayed within the individual cell. So let's check it out. Yep, there it is. Oh, sorry, I just realized it wasn't showing the actual code. So let's show that. What we did was loop over the macros array. And for each, we are rendering a div with a key of m.key. And for each, we're going to name it m. And for each one of those, we want to render a div, and that div is going to render a key. Within that key, we're going to render another div that's going to have the label, and there should be a label being displayed in each of the cells. So that's perfect. So let's just style it a little bit. The initial div that is within that is holding the key, we'll give it a class name of border right, and we'll set the border to neutral 700. We'll set the background to neutral 900, and padding on the X of 3 and on the Y of 2, and we'll make the text centered. Let's click save and check it out. Okay, so we're seeing the dark background. The div that is holding the label, let's give it a class name with a text of small. We'll make the font semi-bold. The text color for it will be neutral 50, and we'll go leading type. Click save and check it out. Perfect. We see the text displayed on screen. Okay, so underneath the div holding the label, let's add one more div. And this will be m.unit to show the unit number. And as you can see, we don't see it just yet because of the color, but let's go ahead and update it real quick. Make sure. Give that div a class name of text 11 pixels. Yeah, that works. Text color will be neutral 200, and we'll go leading type. Let's check it out. Perfect. And it is perfectly centered underneath the name. Excuse me. And all of this is just coming from the array of objects, and we're mapping over that array and displaying the items that we want to display on screen. So we have a label, and then we're able to show the corresponding number underneath that label. So that portion is done. Now let's work on showing the actual rows itself. I think we can put that here. Diary rows. We'll add a div. Let's just make sure the placement of this is correct. I'll just say diary rows and give this a class name of flex and items stretch. Let's check it out. Perfect, right where we want it, or we'll have the add button and food items listed here and the corresponding calories and nutrient breakdown to the right. Perfect.